The Epstein files, were they released? No. But today, the FBI searched an elections office in Fulton County, Georgia, one of the flashpoints of the 2020 election count. A spokesperson for the county says the Bureau was executing a search warrant for records related to that election. MS Now obtained a copy of that warrant. It was seeking all physical Fulton County ballots from the 2020 election, as well as the tabulator tapes from the voting machines. Just last week in Davos, if you remember, the president again claimed without evidence or an audience that even cared that the election was rigged and added the following quote, "People will soon be prosecuted for what they did." Our nightcap is still here. I want us not to forget that Donald Trump told the Georgia Secretary of State to find nearly 12,000 votes, basically to reverse Joe Biden's 2020 win. And now suddenly we have the FBI seizing 5-year-old ballots. Daniel, what's going on here?
This is all a distraction machine. This is all part of it. Obviously, he has his own personal vendetta. But as long as people are talking about this, they're not talking about the fact that the EPA just announced that they're rolling back a rule that would allow smoke emissions to go in any state without any kind of regulation. He's basically legalizing secondhand smoke again, right? He keeps doing this over and over again. In the Department of Labor, where I used to work, Trump has eliminated the Women's Bureau completely. The Women's Bureau existed to make sure that we were fighting for things like equal pay, that we were getting pipelines and apprenticeships for women in different industries. Totally gone. He doesn't want people paying attention to that. He wants people looking at all these distraction machines. And candidly, a lot of the media is buying that every single day. We can't get distracted.
Yeah, the only thing I'd say is this is more than a distraction, right? I mean, the reason that everyone in the White House and DHS lies immediately about, who they kill in the streets of Minneapolis is because lying has been the litmus test for loyalty in this administration. And the number one lie you got to agree with is that Donald Trump won the 2020 election. So now they got the power of the federal government. They got the FBI reopening this. And so this is more than a distraction. This is there is an institutionalized lie around the last election and January 6th that every single member of this government has got to, raise their hand and say it's true. And that's the sign of a declining.
And we have an election coming in 9 months.
Yep.
What message does that send to voters that federal law enforcement is now seizing ballots from 5 years ago?
It's a crafting of a narrative. Yeah, I agree it's more than a distraction because we can now say as a fact that the federal government, the Department of Justice, is looking into potential fraud in the last presidential election. That is now a fact. Now, it's also a fact that there's been no evidence that there's been any fraud, so this is a concocted narrative, but headed into the next election at a time when fewer and fewer media outlets are actually fact-based. That's now part of the conversation.
So this also feeds into other narratives where you have people who are not Trump supporters saying he's trying to steal the 2026 election. That's what people take from this. And I'm going to micro-target this down to Georgia. Georgia's had enough issues when it comes to fair voting. I mean, Stacey Abrams and Brian Kemp, where you had a guy who was Secretary of State while he was running for office. There were all sorts of missing voting machines and issues in Georgia in general. So when you have the FBI come in, it actually increases the level of cynicism that people have there, that their votes are going to be counted, that their votes are going to matter, and that anything that they're trying to do is going to matter. But in the grander scheme of things, what did Pam Bondi say that you had to do in Minnesota in order to make ICE leave? Give us your voter rolls. Give us your tax information. This is part of a larger strategy. It ain't a distraction. It's just that they're throwing multiple balls in the air.
What rationale does Pam Bondi honestly give that if immigration is the number one issue, we'll send them home if you give us your voter rolls?
In theory, she could be saying we're trying to find people who aren't here legally who are voting. I mean, it's nonsense. It's the kind of thing you'd find in some weird echo chamber of the right wing.
But isn't somebody who's voting illegally wildly different from who they claim they're going after, hardened criminals? I can't imagine that MS-13 gang members are lining up to go vote in Suffolk County, Long Island.
The Department of Justice is trying to get voting records and voting rolls from numerous states right now. And they ain't up to no good. It's got nothing to do with cracking down on undocumented immigration. It's got certainly nothing to do with criminality. We got enough difficult time getting American citizens to vote. Mm-hmm. So this is not related to that. This is about a power grab, and they're sowing the seeds of doubt around the 26th election, and they're trying to do their own.
And cynicism diminishes turnout.
Exactly. That's the larger issue. If I think that when I talk to young people who think that their vote doesn't matter. It's when they see things like this that they say, oh, gosh, see,
and TikTok.
and TikTok. They're going to be off that in 2 weeks. That's what they claim
But the
anyway.
fact that we're so fired up about this is exactly what he wants, right? That's what I say by distraction machine. He knows that this is a third rail issue that Democrats love to get spun up about and Republicans love to get spun up about. He knows it can then allow him to do all kinds of other stuff that he actually wants to do to disable our democracy, like what I mentioned about the Women's Bureau, but also that people aren't talking about the Epstein file.
Is it connected to Jack Smith testifying last week?
I don't think these things are either or. I think these guys have always been very good at flooding the zone. I don't think that it's a. First off, I always say this. It's like in Ghostbusters, where like don't think about anything, thinks of Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. Whenever you say this is distraction from the Epstein files, it means you're thinking about the Epstein files, right? You can't distract people from something that they have cared about for 6 or 7 years now. I don't think any of this stuff works as a distraction. I think what it does is it just keeps people of limited resources, the law firms that he's tried to push around, the politicians and the activists. It keeps them spread thin so they can't focus on particular issues. But I don't think there is one thing that ever pops up in this administration that's going to make people forget about Alex Preddy. I don't think there's one thing that's going to pop up in this administration that makes people not think about 2026 or the Epstein files. There is no such thing as a distraction in a society that's addicted to these little machines. People can keep multiple ideas in their heads at once. This administration just thinks if they flood people enough, you won't have time to stop them.
Well, the DOJ already tried to get these ballots last year through a subpoena. Fulton County judge refused. Them demanding it now, is this just another example of them saying, we're not waiting, we get what we want?
Look, the entire idea behind this administration is that might makes right. That's what they're doing.
Is that what?
Might makes right. They've inverted Abraham Lincoln, right? You know, and that is the essential idea. I mean, Stephen Miller said it, Donald Trump said it. Yeah, you aren't going to, we're not going to comply with your court order. We're going to go and take it. But in this case, it's all about doubling down on a utterly discredited conspiracy theory, because that's been the ticket for admission to everybody in this administration. It's the foundational lie. But the real danger is it's bad for our democracy.
It is the foundational lie. Do you remember during the transition when Howard Lutnick and Linda McMahon were in charge, and Howard Lutnick said the #1 qualification for any person who wants to be in this administration is loyalty to Donald Trump. Sure. Not experience, not expertise, loyalty to Trump. And that's what he got.